Hi friends, welcome to the part 2 of books that we have really read and enjoyed as a family and for read alouds and whatnot. So if you're looking for books like this, here are some of the suggestions I have. I've got boys doing yard work, and so forgive me the background noise. I also have a daughter doing the dishes, so there's going to be a lot of background noise in here. But really wanted to get to this part 2 so that I could get this up for y'all, especially with those trying to plan another homeschool year. But believe me when I say you don't need to homeschool to pick up a book and read out loud to your family. These are books that my family has enjoyed. I have 5 kids ranging from 13 and down to 4, almost 5. And again, these are just books that we have really loved as a family. And so that's why I am suggesting them to you. Some of them are going to be pretty popular and common, but I asked my children to pick out some of the favorites that I have read that they have loved. And so when they bring them to me, they come into this video. So we have Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. My husband has never actually gotten to read these growing up. And so we have switched from reading it as a family or reading it as a, during our homeschool hours to now we read it as a family at the dinner table. And we have done Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and now we are on Prince Caspian. And I read it according to the publishing date, not as some of the books have put them in order. So there's that. So we are on Prince Caspian. We have finished Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Another book that, this one I think we love, but definitely be aware that there is a lot of tragedy in this book. This is Carry On, Mr Bowditch, and it won the Newbery and it totally deserved it. And Nathaniel Bowditch is one of those that he wanted a higher education and never got it because he was indentured, I believe is the term, where he was basically, his services sold to help his family. And then what he ended up doing was he just learned as much as he could when he could by book reading and finding ways to hone in skills. And it's such a good inspirational book for kids. Also, there's a lot of death in this book. So if that's like, we got to the point where we were picking up this book and saying before we started reading it, I wonder who's going to die this time. So it's based on a true story. So there is that, and that's a good thing to talk about. So, but I totally recommend Carry On, Mr Bowditch. It's actually how my daughter has started applying some of his principles to learn these other languages by using the Bible and picking out words and kind of learning languages that way. My daughter ended up doing that by requesting a Bible in French so she could do similar things. So it inspired more in our lives and whatnot. And then this one is a classic, and so I recommend it as you're wanting to read classics, but things like, Little Princess, if you have boys, may not be the best thing. Little Women, or, going to the boys' side and you're just like, Old Yeller, I've got boys and girls, and I do have boys that are like a girl book, and girls being like, oh great, a boy book with whatever. I recommend Zorro. Zorro, the Mark of Zorro specifically, was written for a newspaper, so the chapters are pretty short. And there was a good balance between the antics of Zorro and some of the girlness of Señorita Lalita, and the children just really found it hilarious, and all of them loved it. Even my 4-year-old was asking for one more chapter. And so I really recommend this one. It is so much fun, especially for older and younger ages. Just, is Zorro going to get caught? What is he going to do? All of that stuff. So this was a whole lot of fun, and it's a very inexpensive book. I think the Silver Classic Edition was like $3 on Amazon. One that we recently did as an Audible, which then led to the kids wanting to read the book themselves. I did not read this one, but I did have the Audible on as we did some traveling, is Peter Nimble and His Fantastic Eyes. Now, first of all, this can get a little dark, so if you have like sensitive readers, I would recommend this for older ones. But my sensitive boy just, he did not like it at first at all. And then he just was really into it. And so this one, just, you know, maybe check it out for yourself and then see if this is something that would be adventurous enough for your kids. But this is another one that both my boys and my girls really enjoyed. And Peter Nimble is blind, and these magical eyes can help him in his journey to figure out who sent this message in a bottle and what he needs to do to save them. And he's been chosen for this. It starts out with him being a thief, and basically how his abilities as a thief can help be used for the good, in a sense. So, we really liked this. Again, it wasn't one that I read out loud, but we all listened to as an Audible book and really enjoyed it. So there is that. And again, I asked my kids to bring me some of our favorite read alouds, and that came to the stack. Here was another one. No Children, No Pets. And I believe either Bookshark or Sunlight has this book in Careful Johnny in their books that you read, I think in the first or second year. And so this one is about the story of a mom and her 3 children who end up inheriting this hotel, motel, or apartment. And it's basically a lot more work. So the mom's idea is just to sell it, and then they're going to go back to basically their crummy living before. And it's about these kids that just the rules are no children, no pets on this hotel, and so they kind of break the rules just being there. And they basically learn to help the hotel, the occupants of this, I think it's a hotel, help these occupants of this motel and just learn a little bit about them and their time on the Florida beach. It's a really just a fun family book. I would definitely say my younger children kind of enjoy this more than my older children, but interestingly enough, my eldest is the one that brought this book to me as one of the books that she really enjoyed. So I would say if you like books like The Moffats or another book that I will be sharing here soon, if you like these kinds of books and you haven't read this might be a fun one to pick up and read. It's not easy to find. I think you can get it on Amazon, but I would check like eBay and thrift books. Another one that my eldest brought to us that they really enjoyed us reading was The Lizard Garden and Verba Treasure, both by Anne Phillips. And this is basically kind of a 2-story book. They're not, you're going to want to read them in order. I'm like, is it? Yeah, you do. In The Lizard Garden, it takes place in Denmark. I'm pretty sure it's Denmark. Netherlands. Okay, they go to the Netherlands. And The Lizard Garden is an actual place in the Netherlands that Anne Phillips, when she was able to travel, some of these European places, got to go to and saw it. And then she kind of creates this story behind it for these children. Anne Phillips is a Charlotte Mason teacher. And so you can imagine the information that she puts in her living book for parents and children alike. Now, the story of these 3 children, it's so much fun. We ended up doing some really fun things after reading this book, like making spaghetti with Nutella. And I think some things like that kind of just stick with our children when we're reading it. And then we do things that maybe they have done on the books. And what's really fun is they end up just kind of learning about the couple next door and why they're secret. You get to go into the Rijksmuseum, I believe is what it's called. We actually looked it up on YouTube to see if we could see some of these things. And so that was really fun with reading The Lizard Garden, just kind of experiencing some of these things with these children. And then in Verba Treasure, Grandma, this one had my kids busting a gut so many times. The 3 children and their cousins go with their grandma to basically figure out the grandmother's a scavenger hunt that her father left her, I believe. And grandma is kind of a health nut, And so some of the things that she has them do, like, we were all just laughing hysterically. And the little boy that's just kind of he doesn't listen and he's always into trouble. Just some of those things just the kids could relate to and they could be frustrated with at the same time. And again, you get a lot of just, they're going all over Europe. So you're getting some of these places and you can go online and you can find out more. And that was just, again, one of those connecting things that was a lot of fun. And you kind of learn some of the struggles that even adults have, which I think the kids really liked, that, hey, adults have struggles and sometimes we just don't show them or express them as well. And I think that was really fun. So I really recommend these two books just because, again, it's a Charlotte Mason mom, and so she wanted to make some of these places and ideas a living thing for us to look up more and enjoy more. And we definitely did that with those two books. We looked up the Rijksmuseum. We looked at some of these chapels, or I think they're chapels, but churches that were mentioned in the books. We looked all of those up just because it was so much fun. I would be remiss if we did not mention Sweet Home Alaska by Carol Espedag. And this is the story of a young girl and her family during the Depression. They were part of FDR's The Last Frontier movement. So they go to Alaska and they're going to try to make it a livable place. And Terpsichore is inspired by Laura Ingalls Wilder, who the book had just come out. And so for her, this is like that kind of adventure, but isn't. And so there's a lot of things in this book that kind of tie into Laura Ingalls. And so I think, that's why it really connects with the children. But it was also just a really fun story. They're trying at one point to come up with a library. They're entering this pumpkin contest and trying to grow the biggest pumpkins. There's a lot in here. And this is such a fun book. And so if you haven't read it, I highly recommend picking it up and adding it to your stack to read. That was a book that Emily from Art Schooling, when she did her family reading crate box, that was the first one, and it was a hit. The second one that was a hit out of the second box was Xeno and Alice, and that is the story of basically a African parrot who gets separated from his owner, and he's a very proud parrot. And you get the two perspectives here of Xeno, who is named after the philosopher, I believe, the Greek philosopher, and you get Alia, who is a young girl dying of cancer or leukemia. And so it's just back and forth, their story and how they come together and how more happens with that. I don't want to spoil it. But that was another one that the kids really enjoyed, especially when I made banana nut muffins to kind of go along with that. Again, those little things that just made a connection with the kids, and I think really brought home that book or those stories. So I have two more books here to share with you. One is Swallows and Amazons by Arthur Ransom. Now, with this book, it had a very slow beginning for us. I was definitely the one that kept pushing this because it was on Amazon Online, which means we had to read it. But definitely one of those that once we got into, we loved. And then we watched the movie and loved the book some more. And my kids were really inspired by this because they made the flags for Swallows and Amazons. They tried to live out the survivalist island thing all on their own. And part of me wonders if this wasn't the spark for my boys in their kind of love of survivalist journeys. So again, this has a slow start. It's very kind of dated, classic, and you know how that goes. But once we got into it, didn't want to put it down. Wanted one more chapter, and all of that. Then the last book I'm going to share with you is actually a 4-book series, and I talk about these books so much, but I'm going to say it again. These are the Melendi Children, or the Melendi series by Elizabeth Enright. You have the Saturdays, the 4-Story Mistake, then there were 5, and Spiderweb for 2. And the Melendis, if you love the Moffats, you're going to love the Melendez. The Melendez are a family of 4 during, I think it's just before World War II. And there is no mom, but there is Cuffy, the housekeeper, and Willie Sloper, the like chauffeur, and he fixes the furnace. I'm not really sure what you would put him. Later on, he becomes the gardener, and it's just their stories. And then Saturdays, the first book, the children come up with this idea of pooling their resources. We actually like to use that terminology now as a family. They pool their resources to basically collect all of their allowance and then go on one adventure rather than having one dime that they're saving up for so long and whatnot. And it's just what happens each Saturday as they do their adventures. And the 4-story mistake, they have to leave their home and they end up in a house that has a 4th-story mistake. When they were building it, something happened. And it's just their summer adventures in a new place and meeting new people and just the adventures that happen with that. And then number 5, you have another person on the scene that you meet in book 4. And again, just this building of family adventures. If you like Penderwicks, you will love the Melendez, okay? So Penderwicks, get the Melendez. Moffat's, get the Melendez if you haven't read them. So much fun. These are probably one of our favorites that we have ever read. And if you can even get the Audible or audio version read by, not Sherry Jones, that's Pamela Dilma. She does a phenomenal job. So if you like these books, I really recommend, love them. I really recommend picking these up. So those are the books that I have to recommend for you for a read aloud this year, whether it's for your homeschool or just for your family. And again, I just wanted to kind of create books that my children loved with a wide variety of interests and ages and whatever. And I hope you enjoyed these videos. Remember, this is 2 parts. And so if you haven't seen the first one, check the description box below. So thank you, and until next time, have a great new school year, reading year, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.